I'd like to thank you all for showing up here. We're here to stop the ban on feeding birds and squirrels in all the parks of New York City. Specifically today, we have come here to City Hall to confront Mayor de Blasio, who did not follow up on his promise to animal rights activists when he said he was concerned about this ban that would prohibit the feeding of the birds and the squirrels in all the parks. He said he wanted to examine it much closer, but instead, the mayor only reviewed the issue with this very same agency that made the proposed ban. On March 22nd, the mayor responded to a caller who called in on the Brian Layers Ask the Mayor segment. He told her that he found her arguments very compelling, very powerful, and he wanted to get the whole picture. He wanted to do an internal review. He wanted to get more information. Not only did the mayor not follow through with this promise, but his examination of the issue was just listening to what the Parks Department told him. So now here we are, despite overwhelming opposition to this ban and without any form of city council review, he approves the parks steamrolling this ban. When Mayor de Blasio is confronted with the issue on the radio and the TV interviews, he says his reasons for supporting the ban are because the trash from the wildlife feeders that feed the birds and the squirrels supply an open buffet to the rats in the park. These reasons are weak and they're feckless, and he tries to say that the ban is about education. But punitive rules and laws are not passed if the goal is merely education. The mayor sounds as if the city parks are full of hordes of wildlife feeders who litter the parks with all kinds of debris like balloons and bottles and old shoes. And it's true, the parks are full of all these items, but they are not from the people that feed the squirrels, and they are not from the people that feed the birds. The truth is that less than 1% of all the park goers actually feed the birds and the squirrels. And of that percent, the majority are disabled, seniors, and families. These are the people that the mayor and the Parks Department want to label as criminals. Mayor de Blasio blames feeding squirrels and birds for the rat problem, even though there's nothing that supports this. He can't back it up, the parks can't back it up. He never mentions the rats in the underground subway system, where feeding birds and feeding squirrels is non-existent. As a matter of fact, there are 63% of restaurants, which is about 15,000 in the city, that have had, at some point or other, a rodent problem and have been cited for rodent problems. So why doesn't the mayor and the Parks Department ban all the food concessions, all the vendors, all the outdoor restaurants, from push carts to shake snacks? Instead, they choose to ban the people that feed the birds and the people that feed the squirrels. Now, the parks claim that the trees are sufficient in the park system to support the natural wildlife. However, this is not true. The park's landscape has changed over the years, and trees supplying these food sources have been removed. Those planned to be reintroduced are not there yet, and those that are there now are not mature enough to produce the food sources necessary. And you have to think, not all parks are the same. Many have been landscaped for human pleasure with minimal thought to wildlife that reside there. Now the parks want to eliminate the birds and squirrels' alternate food source, which are the people that feed them. This would force the squirrels to now rummage around in the garbage, where they're definitely going to get unhealthy food, which would make them sick, or worse, they'll be wandering out in the traffic and on the streets. Parks aren't the wild, and it's insane to expect the squirrels and birds to forage and behave as if they were in the wild. This proposed ban has also brought serious emotional distress to a lot of people. For example, we have Liliana Gazevsky, a 75-year-old woman with stage 4 cancer. She feeds the birds in Central Park on a regular basis, and she says that it's very therapeutic for her. We have Daniel. He's a homeless man with lung cancer who goes to Madison Square Park every day to feed the squirrels. And Daniel says, and I quote, "Feeding squirrels is my joy, and if the ban on feeding birds and squirrels is adopted, then I would lose that joy and be reminded of my illness." This proposed ban criminalizes an act of kindness with from $50 to $200, and in some cases a day in jail. The mayor states, oh, there won't be a crackdown. Oh, there's not going to be any enforcement. We're not going to do that. Well, hey, if you have a rule that you think is not worth enforcing, then why are you going to pass it in the first place? From the very start, it appears that those in power thought it was going to be an easy-to-pass, draconian, punitive, and heartless measure. And they wanted to do it with little fanfare, little notice. Indeed, they didn't even go through city council, who would most likely have rejected it. And it's easy to understand why. Few people, if any, made any objection or critiqued when there was a destruction of all the trees at the Jackie Onassis Reservoir. Now that place is just a barren wasteland. And what happened with Bryant Park? Did anyone protest that? There used to be trees there. There used to be wildlife. Now there's vendor and vendor and vendor. You can't even see a squirrel because they weren't part of the business plan. It seems in light of all this, a simple rule change would not likely garner any attention or any protest. Of course, they had to have the comment section for the New York website for New York City rules, and they had to have a hearing. But that was just a formality that they didn't even pay attention to. Even the early media suggested that this ban proposal was a slam dunk and it would go into effect this summer. But not so fast. People did comment, over 90% in opposition to this ban. People showed up at the hearing in protest. A petition with more than 4,000 signatures was presented to the commissioner. And letters of protest went into every newspaper in the city. Not only that, New York One had a poll, and it had a record-breaking 2,267 respondents, of which 81% of them said, no, we don't want this ban. So yes, the bureaucratic and political officials thought they would have an easy slam dunk with this. But the people have spoken, and they're willing to stand up and say, no, not now, and not ever. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.